So, at this state of play, we saw about 4 or 5 games coming to PlayStation VR 2.
Mm-hmm.
And I think somewhere someone has said that they're trying to launch with about 20 games for the console, or rather for the platform when it comes out. And so we've seen photos of the hardware.
Yeah.
We've got the tech specs. We've had those for a while.
Some people
Now
have
we're
played
seeing
it.
a few.
Some people have tried it
Right.
at GDC.
Have we heard those impressions?
It seemed positive. I don't know. It's mostly PlayStation partners, so like, why wouldn't they be positive about the thing that their parent company does? But as I haven't heard anything particularly bad about it.
Okay. So yeah, like I don't think we're going to get much more news from Sony for a little while.
No.
I think what this state of play was this is to tide. We're not ready to tell you about. We're not ready to give you a first party showcase. You know, last year they did that in September. I think we're not going to see much from them except maybe an isolated God of War release date until maybe around that time again. And then we'll get much more news about PlayStation VR 2. We'll get updates on Spider-Man 2, things we haven't heard of yet, other things that are closer down the pipeline. But I don't think we're going to hear much from Sony for a while. So
Yeah.
I think this is the most zoomed out view of PSVR 2 we've got, where we could see most of the picture, despite not having had a big reveal event or a cohesive like launch lineup yet. This is about as good as we're going to get for a while, I think.
I agree.
And so we just sort of wanted to talk about not just PSVR 2, but also the landscape of the VR industry or sub-industry, and where it's landing and what that looks like at the moment. So,
And specifically in the consumer space, because there's a giant push in the enterprise and in the surrounding industries for VR, which is like, it's just like, we're not in that space, and it's not super relevant to what we're talking about at the moment anyway. We're talking about regular Joes buying a headset to mess around with at home, not for work.
Yes, entertainment VR.
Yeah.
So our first little headline here is the current state of VR. And so that sort of comes down to like what headsets are dominant in the market right now. Like if you remember when PSVR 1 came out in 2016, it was when everything was coming out. That was when the Rift came out. That was when the Vive came out. It was very exciting, very expensive, very hard to get into. But there was so much discussion of like, this is the next thing, or like, this is going to, there's so much grand talk like that. And now it's been 6 years and we can see what happened with VR. And basically it is a decent supplement to a standard gaming diet. As soon as I said supplement, I'm like, fuck, I'm going to say it.
I know.
I'm just say it.
I saw you say that word and I was like, oh, where's he going to go with that?
I didn't want to be like core gaming, like title. I didn't, but I ended up saying gaming diet instead. So I don't think I really picked a better horse there. But yeah, it sort of sits alongside handily. It is, because it's another big investment, you can't really just jump into it too much. It's quite difficult to get more people to buy into it who aren't a bit more wealthy, a bit more curious, who haven't experienced it before. Like, there is just a natural barrier to entry with this platform and with this technology to get more people to buy in.
Yeah.
That said, so much has changed in the last 6 years. When PSVR 1 came out, it was like $500 in Australia, about the same price as the PS4 was.
It was $550 because I bought it on launch. I think it was $550.
Yeah.
And you needed to own the camera.
Controllers? You needed to own the camera.
Yep. Did
it come with the controllers?
The Move controllers? No.
Okay, so it was actually a bit more expensive if you wanted the proper VR experience.
If you wanted the Move controllers, yeah.
Yeah. And these days it comes with the camera, not with the controllers. But yeah, so PSVR used the old Move tracking system to judge things. Like the way it was tracked was with the camera sitting in front of you, it judged where the lights on the headset were and where the lights on the Move controllers were, which was good for like 10 years ago when they were competing with the Nintendo Wii with the Move controllers. But
sorry, I somehow have managed to put a splinter in my hand from my hoodie.
Oh.
That's really annoying. Sorry, keep going.
You were storing it for later.
I guess so. That sucks. What an annoying thing.
Yes. I was going to say, let me know if you want some tweezers, but I'm not in your house. I can't help you. I'm sorry.
It's all right. I just got it out. I'm good.
Well done. That was going to bug you all day, wasn't it?
Oh, it was an immediate, well, this is an annoying thing.
I can't avoid this.
What an annoyance I've just put in my hand.
So yeah, it was quite a rudimentary tracking system, but what that meant was PSVR was the most affordable VR headset by far at the time.
Yeah, it was, and also one of the most comfortable.
Yeah, totally. Its headband, like tracked and tweak and pull setting was good.
Yep.
The way it handled headphones was good with its little control bar, and it only needed a PS4 rather than a $2,000, GTX 1080 to run. So it was more affordable on the base hardware, more affordable for the headset. You needed the extra controller and camera separately, which is annoying, but still, it's such an easy way to get in on the ground floor of VR for a decent experience. It fell down because, rather, it aged. It's a system that aged very quickly.
Yes, it definitely
partly because of its competition, but partly because of its implementation, which was, being made for PS4, which wasn't really that well designed for this platform.
I mean, like, this feels like I can't believe they managed to get VR running on the base PS4.
Totally.
Like, I think as an invention, I think it was great. But, like, it's at that point, like, you can't make, like, an outboard video card for the VR to run better for the... Like, it's... Because at that point, you've got 3 power supplies. It's just, yeah. And there was...
Yeah, and they had the mess of cables that ran from it.
It was the thing that stopped me going back to it.
The setup.
Yeah, it took... It was like just a 15-minute setup every time I wanted to use it. And oh my god, the PSU it came with was so fucking loud because the fan always came loose, and so I used to like put a piece of plastic in the fan so the fan was up running. But then it would start to overheat. It was like it was genuinely too loud. It was like it was so fucking loud.
On top of the PlayStation being too loud to begin with, the PS4.
Yeah.
And so that was part of why the PSVR aged as it did. And then the tracking was pretty quickly superseded by Oculus Quest, or MetaQuest as it's called now.
Yep.
Not only was it entirely standalone, so no wires except when you were charging, but it had inside-out tracking for the controllers.
Yep.
So it was way better tracking than the PSVR, which is relying on 4 lights on your head and 2 lights in your hands from a camera, from a webcam. And it was so cheap. It was the cost of the headset, and that was it. You got the controllers. You didn't need any other hardware. You could take it with you wherever you went. It had a decent battery. Like, I've got mine's right over there, which is Jeremy's old Quest 1, because Jeremy's got the Quest 2. Like, it's a really great headset.
Yeah.
Owned by a garbage company, which is a shame.
Yes.
But the piece of the technology is amazing.
Yes.
And completely undercut the entire VR market.
Yeah. Yeah. Like it was a like no one could compete with it. You couldn't. Facebook has too much money. And they were extraordinarily bullish with it. Like, honestly, like they just muscled basically everybody out. Like I work, it's like my job at Zero Latency, like I'm dealing with the people that like are in charge of the hardware all the time. And like, we've had many conversations about Facebook and about the Quest and stuff. And like the conversation always ends with like, they just completely destroyed all the competition by being incredibly strong and making the best product.
Yeah.
For the price.
So for the price as well. Yeah, definitely. They're probably at a loss on it, aren't they?
I don't know.
Yeah, that's hard to say.
Yeah,
but
I'm not gonna make a call either way if they sell it at a loss, because it's pretty fucking refined.
Yeah. So it came out May 21st, 2019. Introductory cost of $400 or a bit more if you want a bigger hard drive. And it's such a tour de force for VR. It's so impressive. And then the next year, Valve came out with the Valve Index. It was interesting because it isn't an HTC Vive, it's not Valve working with HTC. This was Valve's own hardware, making one of the best premium VR headset experiences around. And that's its biggest claim to fame. It's got superior hand tracking because it's got really intense, huge controllers. I think it does individual finger tracking, doesn't it?
Yes.
With how it measures where you're holding on the handles.
Yeah.
And then, the way it works with the base stations, the resolution of the headset, it's a really premium experience. And so Valve Index has a place in the world because it is so premium. Goodbye, cat. That is its one differentiator. Whereas the problem with PlayStation VR trying to compete with MetaQuest is that they were directly competing. I don't know where my cat went.
Yeah, they were directly competing, which is weird because they were kind of competing in different spaces anyway. And it's totally. I think it's just they were trying to do different things in a market that is just already really quite small. It's, PlayStation were going for the consumer market that owned PlayStations, and I think
VR gaming.
Yeah, and Facebook were going for my first headset. And I think that they were both going for the my first headset thing, but they just had such different places to come from to go for the same what ends up being the same market, just because the market is so small. There isn't enough for both to work on. Even though they would not explicitly, it's very interesting. It's really, really weird because I wouldn't call it a niche, but I would call it a subsection of an audience, which is people that are already interested in games, and the smaller circle inside of it, which is people that are specifically interested in VR gaming.
Yeah. And then who are able to afford VR gaming.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that's sort of where things landed this last year. PSVR still has a place. It still sells whenever there's a Days of Play sale. It's on sale right now, in the middle of June. And people still buy it. It is still good for people who are interested in it, and families who there are so many dozens of millions of PS4s in the world. Having a PS4 isn't necessarily a hurdle to clear anymore.
And there were some really good games. The Astrobot started off as a VR thing. Oh, no, it didn't start off as a VR thing, but its first fully fledged game was a VR thing.
Yeah, Rescue Mission, Moss.
Yeah, Moss is good. And there was a lot of the demo disc PlayStation stuff was pretty neat. Gran Turismo had a thing. Resident Evil. Blood and Truth.
Blood and Truth. You remember there was the London Heist demo they had for PlayStation VR Worlds?
I thought that game was really bad.
Oh, okay. I thought some people liked it.
Right.
But okay.
And then the Resident Evil 7. Yeah, had its. You could play the whole thing in VR, which was really cool.
So cool.
And Hitman.
So cool.
Hitman VR
started off as a PlayStation. Didn't have it. Pardon?
Hitman 3 started off as a VR thing.
Yeah, that's true. Although I think almost everyone said, I'll see that in the year when it's on every other platform, which is what I did, and the only reason I'm talking about it today.
Yeah. But yeah, you're right. It was weird that 8 didn't have a VR thing on launch, but I think that's just because it was just
it's a niche.
We'll get there.
Yeah. And I suppose PSVR and VR in general was much newer when 7 came out.
Yeah.
It was much more the thing at the time.
Yeah, you got to wonder what kind of investment Sony got Capcom to do that for. Because they already have, by and large, they have the marketing deal for those games. You know that
yeah, they're so many of Capcom's announcements are just at state of plays. Like I think every Resident Evil remake at this point has been through a state of play or a Sony press conference.
I think 3 was the only one that didn't, and I think that was just
that was on a state of play.
That was
and it
state
got
of play?
leaked to hell like a week before.
Right. Okay, that's why I didn't. That's why I didn't associate it with it because I already knew.
Yeah, it got like fully entirely leaked.
Yeah.
Prior. It wasn't rumors. It was like, oh no, it's happening.
Yeah. Like yeah.
So yeah, and so it's interesting our second topic there was what's PSVR 1's legacy, and I think we sort of went through that just then as part of that discussion. Do you have anything to add to that sort of topic?
I think that I'm glad that PlayStation feel happy about it enough that they were acknowledging VR as early as they did into the PS5's life cycle, right? Because I remember when they announced that the PSVR 2 was going to be a thing, me and I think were you as sort of surprised to see it as I was?
As VR2 actually happening?
Yeah.
I was honestly.
Yeah.
Because I very easily could have seen it as like a successful experiment. It's been kind of quiet since Iron Man VR. Even that was like kind of a splash at that point. Like it wasn't
it wasn't good.
It wasn't a big deal. And so I definitely was, I think, more surprised than not that it was happening. But when you look at it, it makes sense. VR1 was a successful platform for them in the end. And I think what it says to me is that they had pretty realistic expectations about what it could do, what its return on the company could be, and where it's going in the future. So I
do agree with you because I think they must look at PSVR 1 like they should, which is like, hey, we threw these things together with whatever we had. You know, we used PS3 era move tracking. We used a helmet that has got lights on it for tracking, and we made the best of what we could with the hardware of the PS4. And I think they can...
And the camera they'd already made, right?
A camera they already made, right? And I think they got to look at this and go like, all right, like, if we fully committed to this, like, what can we do? If we did everything... Like, if we built the PS5 with VR in mind, and we developed specific hardware for all of this with the current standards, what can we do? And I think that it is a good show of confidence that they were happy enough with one, that they are committing to this so early in the game, even when you still just can't go and pick a PS5 off the shelf.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So I think that is really interesting, but I think the PSVR 1's legacy will be like a successful experiment that gives them the confidence to like do something really good.
Totally. It's I appreciated that they went for it. And you know, they could make the PS5 with that in mind. You know, the PSVR 2 is going to be a one cable system. And it's going to be USB-C, so it's going to handle like power and
video,
display and audio. And there's a USB-C port on the front of the system. So like perfect. That's great. So our third topic here is, does anyone else get involved in the market? Like what's going to happen in the future in terms of other big tech companies? A lot of, you know, Meta's focus is kind of all over the place now because they want to do stuff that'll get people into the metaverse, regardless of whether they want to be entertained or gaming or, you know, they want people wearing headsets to do their work, you know, and have meetings, and
they want the worst kind of existence. They want the worst for humanity.
Yeah, exactly. So they're in a weird spot, but they're firmly, they have the development and the team and the manufacturing behind that. So they're firmly in the market.
And whatever their Meta Quest 2 Pro, which is it's not going to be called that, but that's what their next thing is, which is like a higher end model of the Quest is, I think, what they're looking at next.
Right.
like I don't also quite know what that's for, but I think that they are generally just making the all-purpose headset.
Yeah, totally. They don't want to be the headset for gamers. They want to be the headset for everyone to do anything with it VR related.
Yeah.
They want to control that space.
Yeah, they want what they had with Facebook, which is everybody's already on it.
Yeah. But in terms of other companies, you've written here in terms of other gaming companies, we've got Microsoft, Nintendo, and Apple written down. Lest we forget Nintendo Labo VR. Don't forget, everyone, that Super Smash Brothers has a VR mode where you can spectate with like cardboard goggles.
Yeah.
You remember Google Cardboard?
I do remember Google Cardboard. That was a neat thing.
That was great. Ollie made games with that for like not half a year, but like a few months.
Yeah.
At AIE when we were learning games.
Yeah.
They were sick. It's a shame they fell off that.
That's like everything Google.
Totally.
Yeah, do you remember Stadia?
Lens, Stadia. Yeah. So yeah, Nintendo, I don't know if we see them do anything in that space. They dabbled, but their hardware is already so like underpowered by comparison for what you would need for it. And they're so firm that they're doing their own thing. You know, they're playing their own song by doing this portable, dockable.
Yeah, and their song is extraordinarily heavily copyrighted.
What?
Did you hear the other day that all the YouTube channels that were hosting Nintendo music on YouTube for people to listen to have all hit, like, they all got 300 copyright strikes, like, over the past, week?
No.
Yeah, they're all going to be fucking taken down. And you know what's worse?
No.
That there's just no alternative. That,
Totally.
They never release any of their music officially, really.
Yeah, that's pretty upsetting. Corporations, huh?
Yeah.
But what do you think we see from Microsoft in this space, Jeremy? Do you think we see them get into it? Because they spoke about like partnering with Oculus for a while back at the start of the Xbox One, and then that fell through. Like, what do you think we see them do anything there?
I mean, I don't, but I think it's important to sort of bring them up in that conversation of, you know, like, do you remember, like, they've had the what's it called? They've had the HoloLens on stage at E3 before, and then that fell off.
And like demos at E3 too, or there was that like Halo demonstration apparently that people went to.
And there was a Minecraft one that was on stage, and I don't think they get into it, but I think that they don't know that they don't want to, but they also don't know how to currently.
Right.
Look, they could easily set up a studio, partner with one of the big companies that make headsets, HTC, whatever, and they could just start making games. But I think that they want something different than that. You know, do we start seeing... So there's a lot of companies at the moment which are looking at VR streaming.
Right.
So, like, cloud streaming games directly to a VR headset, which is really difficult, but some are getting it done. It usually requires extraordinarily fast internet and really, really low latency. And so
but it also takes the burden off of the consumer to have the hardware necessary to drive the experiences.
At that point, all you need is a headset that can do good tracking and can transcode video.
Yeah.
And has, you know, like Wi-Fi 5 or 6 or whatever. Maybe they wait for that. You know, like if they can start hosting VR games on their xCloud platform, maybe that's where they go.
Well, they've already got that streaming tech there, yeah.
But also, they've already got so many studios at the moment. They've already got so many plates spinning. Do they just not even need to get involved, you know?
Well, especially because I don't necessarily think that we've seen a return on their investment in that regard yet for Microsoft, for Xbox. They've invested so heavily in so many people. We haven't seen anything from Double Fine yet. Nothing from Ninja Theory.
We saw
nothing from the Coalition.
Yeah, we saw Psychonauts 2.
Psychonauts 2, pardon me, although that was already being developed
Sure.
when they were acquired. What I'm saying is we're not we're not. I don't think we've seen like this is why Xbox bought this, because this is such a victory for Xbox and a victory for the studio, and they could have made this without them, and it's going to sell. We haven't seen that yet.
Yeah.
And it's been years since some of these acquisitions, and they just keep making more and more of them. So I wonder if they do just focus on that for now. It's like, look, if VR picks up, and at that point, it does become about streaming, maybe they just let everyone else handle the research and development and the loss and the difficulty of figuring all this stuff out, and they jump in when everyone's figured it out. But yeah, I still feel like they're still dealing with the ramifications of the Xbox One's failure in some regard.
Maybe. I think like they're currently doing the response still. But I think the thing is that Microsoft are not one to let an industry go untouched by them. They have they have their fingers in many pies intentionally.
Like gaming.
Yeah, but everything, like a cloud stream.
Yeah, no, I know, but it's just because they were a computer company, and now that,
Yes. So I can see them looking at an opportunity, investing just a couple of mil, as you do.
Yeah. Maybe even if just to disrupt Sony's efforts.
Maybe, or is it like, do they go into the, do they buy out it's hard because a lot of the other VR companies are just already owned by other companies, but like, do they invest in a tracking company, or do they invest in a Wi-Fi solution company? Or do they go the complete other direction? Do they buy HTC, right?
Yeah. That would be fascinating if that happened. I'd be surprised.
I don't think they would either, because the HTC is too big of a company just to buy out for VR. But you know what I mean, though, right? Like, do they buy a company just so they have some stake in the tech?
Like when Sony bought Gaikai.
Yeah.
It's like, we want to be into streaming. You're into streaming. You're with us. Yeah. Fascinating.
And they did nothing with it.
And then there's been. Pardon?
Then they did nothing with it for 5 years, and then released a product.
Yeah, that not many people like. Although the people who do like it. But I suppose you could say that about literally anything.
Yep.
There is a fabled headset that Apple is making as well. We don't really know much about it.
Yeah, it's like all of their things. They take a very, very long time to work out the product that they want to make. I don't know how closely
you won't hear about it till the end.
Exactly right. I don't know how closely you follow Apple News, Carrie, but like
not much.
In those circles, they have been talking about making an Apple car for over 10 years.
Apple car.
Yeah, like they were doing like that because they've got like the car OS. They've got the operating system that runs in cars that connects to iPhones and stuff. That came out like I want to say like 5 years ago now. Like they were talking about that for a fucking long time, like a really, really long time before they finally found out how exactly they wanted to go about it. And that's because they're the second biggest company or third biggest company in the world or whatever, right? So they can afford to do that. From what I understand, the Apple headset, we're not going to see it this year at WWDC, which is their big developer conference where they talk about everything. But maybe next year is when we're going to start to see it. But again, is it just for games? Is it for metaverse shit? Is it for enterprise? Is it for what is it for? I feel like they don't often do specifically just enterprise stuff, but I guess they do when you think about media creation tools. They sell $6,000 computers not to consumers. I mean, they sell some consumers buy it,
but they sell them on the same site. They want people to know that they're there and that they're selling them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that people are like, oh wow, you've got a Mac Pro. Like,
yeah,
it is much less about their non-public facing side. They want to be seen prestige.
And like their products are only getting more expensive, and their products are only getting more and more powerful. So they could pull out a really killer headset that no one could afford.
Oh, stick an M1 chip in a headset. That would be pretty intense. That would, because all you hear about that chip is that it's so powerful, so efficient, and like just absolutely runs rings around the competition. Like Facebook don't have anything on that. No one else does right now, really. Yeah. Intel maybe, but they're not in the headset space.
But then who's going to make games for it if it's only on that one sort of thing, right? Like it would be an Apple sort of putting internal development on it, and then
that's a good point.
What do you do then?
Because it runs entirely differently. It's a different architecture. It's a good point. Yeah, I don't know what we see from them, honestly, going forward. It does feel like we've hit a bit of a settling point in the industry, at least for now.
Yeah.
Meta's happy with their Quest being so dominant. PlayStation's coming out with, it's like I was saying about Rogue Legacy 2, right? We're getting PSVR 2. We're getting the next one.
Yeah.
And in terms of stats, I haven't gone over it, but in terms of, I had a list here of comparisons between the two platforms. We're talking about doubling the resolution per eye from PSVR to PSVR 2. Both displays were OLED, but this one's going to be HDR. 90 hertz or 120 hertz refresh rate. Slightly bigger field of view, which is great. It's got motion sensor, four cameras for tracking the headsets and the controllers on the unit itself, and an IR camera for eye tracking, which can be really interesting. So it does more efficient rendering only where you're looking.
Yeah, that is going to be a standard going forward with every headset. That is going to be a required feature for basically all headsets going forward now that tech is there and can be fit inside a headset.
And it's so good that they're on the front foot with that stuff too, because they really weren't with the first generation. They were kit bashing it. It's got headset haptics, enhanced controller haptics.
I'm so curious.
Yeah, I know. And then even better USB-C connection, single cable, which is going to be great.
Still a shame it's not wireless, but that would inflate the price dramatically. As it stands, it's still rumored to come out around $750 Australian. It's still rumored to be about the same price of the PS5, which makes sense when you're like, oh, the original was about the same price as the original console, but they were both much cheaper at launch. PS5 being more expensive and then the headset being more expensive on top of that, it is a bit of a... Instead of us talking about just over $1,000 when all the things were new, we're talking about $1,500. Yeah.
And people can hardly get the thing that you need to run it anyway.
Yeah.
So they've got some hurdles with this one. Just to wrap it all up, Jeremy, what do you want from consumer VR entertainment going forward?
I don't actually know.
Yeah. As someone who has had the PSVR from day one, you've got the Quest, you got the Quest 2, you work in VR.
Yeah. Yeah, part of my job is to put on a headset and set them up, and I've done QA for ZL games and all that stuff, right?
And you've run them.
Yeah, and I used to, run the sessions. I don't know. I genuinely don't know. I think I want more. I want more direction. I think I want people to make.
In the games or the hardware?
In the product. I want things that are like, hey, this is the headset that people who play games are gonna love, and we're gonna support it, sort of thing, right? Okay. Like the reason I love the Quest is because it is a relatively cheaper entry to do PC VR via the remote streaming desktop program, which is just magic.
Yep.
That program shouldn't exist in the way it does, and yet it does.
I was recommending someone use it just today.
Yeah, it's like there is no better thing, right? I think there needs to be a really direct push to be like, hey, this is the one that you play the games on. And over the next 6 years, there will be a ton of really good games that are like, hey, guess what? You wouldn't be able to get something this good not in VR, sort of thing, right? The killer app, everyone's favorite phrase, which I fucking hate that phrase.
Really? I didn't know that about you.
I think that's really, I think it's a really reductive phrase, because I think it needs to be like you need more than one.
Right.
And I think I just anytime anyone says like what's the killer app, I'm like shut up. But I was thinking about that the other day, right? So I was looking at my partner because they haven't tried VR really at all. And as someone who has for a long time, I've made games in VR, I work in VR. I was thinking like, what can I show my partner that they will have like a really fun time in? And I don't actually know the answer to that. And I thought about it for a really long time, and I couldn't actually think of anything. And that's not
really.
Like, I could think of some things, but I couldn't think of anything that they could just jump into and then jump out of that didn't feel like a really heavy video game thing.
I've got it. I had an immediate answer. Job Simulator.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, I suppose that's probably
because that one is you got the different levels. And it's like, oh, when I'm sick of the Quickie Mart, I'll go to the office. Like.
I suppose that like I didn't actually think of Job Simulator.
Because that was one of my first experiences.
Sure.
And Sam's as well. So
right.
That's where I'm coming from.
Like I was thinking about my VR experiences, and it was like the Playroom VR stuff is stellar. Like that is one of the best introductions to VR that I've ever done.
Unfortunately, it's on the PSVR.
Exactly, right? I was thinking about Super Hot. It's a bit video gamey. It's a bit like this is already a game, and I was like,
if you're into it, it's amazing. But
exactly, I was thinking the same thing about Half-Life. Thinking the same thing about Gorn, all that stuff, right? Like they're all video games that are in VR, and I wanted like a VR game. And I don't mean to sound reductive towards those games because they are all definitely VR games, but they also could not be. I wanted like an elating experience.
You wanted the journey of VR.
Yes.
Or Flower.
Yes, I do. Yes, Kerry. That's exactly what I want. I want Journey in VR. The Journey equivalent in VR.
Yes. But also, maybe just Journey.
I'd play Journey in VR. That game company should make a VR game. Yeah, I think I needed a directed push towards the gaming space in what I want for consumer grade VR. All this nonsense about go to concerts in VR, all this nonsense about go to meetings, none of that stuff. Like, being in VR is tiring.
Yes.
And it's not that...
nauseating.
It can be nauseating. That stuff isn't it.
No, you're right.
And
that's what everyone wants it to be. That's the metaverse that these greedy companies see as giving them the most profit right now. But you're right. It's no interest to me, and it's not entertaining.
Yeah.
And you hear all these stories about these virtual concerts and how garbage they are. They've just stuck a camera in the front row seat, and like you can't see anything, and the audio quality is crap. And yeah.
Give me Guitar Hero in VR.
Whoa. That would be a lot. That would be so much.
What do you want from consumer grade VR, Kerry?
What do I want? I think I like your idea of having like a developer or someone have a more faithful view of what they want to do going forward. What do I really want? I want a few more. And to be fair, I haven't done enough with my headset to really talk to this, but I want more of those. I want an experience that I get really engaged with and feels cohesive, and not so much as a tech demo. Hitman is really impressive because it's just the full game. Superhot VR I've really loved because it's the translation of that original game into VR, where it works amazingly, and you're aiming the guns and you're throwing the shurikens and the weapons and the ashtrays. Like, that translates really well.
Yeah.
I was most heartened when I was watching this state of play. I was actually really excited by the Call of the Mountain Horizon trailer, because all we'd seen of it was like 30 seconds prior, and it just looked like you're on a boat and it's like a safari game, right? The tall neck walks over you, the sawtooth walks by, maybe something attacks you and you hide from it, and then the thing's over. That's what I expected they were making. But the gameplay they showed from this game earlier this week, what was it? It was, like arena fighting with the sawtooths, actually fighting Thunderjaws, and then like walking right over you, swimming with the crocodile monsters going past, climbing, bow and arrow shooting. Like, it's like you're doing all the Horizon stuff in there. What don't you like about this? Why are you grimacing?
You know when you go to a restaurant,
yeah,
and the menu is like 7 pages long,
yeah,
and you look at it and it's like, if you make all this stuff, none of it's going to be amazing.
See, what I think it's going to be is I think it's going to be short. I think it's going to be like 20 minutes of climbing, 30 minutes of combat, 10 minutes of walking around.
Yeah. And see, for me, I think that's too long, because I think it's going to be 15 minutes of climbing that isn't very good, 10 minutes of shooting that isn't very good, 10 minutes of swimming that also isn't very... I think it looks quite good because Horizon looks great, but I think that I don't have a whole lot of immediate faith. Maybe not faith. I don't have optimism that it's a solid experience all the way through. I think it might be one of those things where like you'll show someone 2 cool parts of it, and then you'll be like, oh, just get through this bit really quick, or you skip a chapter and go to another cool bit, and then you never do the I don't think climbing in VR is very interesting.
I mean, maybe. I guess what I liked so much about the idea of that, though, is less that I like each of those component parts, and more that there are different component parts that make up the whole of the experience.
Sure.
Like when the VR came out, some of the best things you could do was like Space Pirate Trainer, right? It's just a shooting gallery. That's all that game is. You shoot robots and dodge bullets, and you have a few different weapons.
Yeah.
And that's it. And that's all there was to it. And so I want more of those ones that maybe engage me with a bit of story and have me doing some combat and have me doing maybe not stealth because it's a bit clunky, but maybe something else that's fun. Like driving. I don't know. Like,
yeah,
I want those cohesive experiences, which is funny because you're talking about, those games that you thought of to introduce to your partner, and none of them really jumped out at you because they're all kind of intense. And I don't know, those are kind of the ones that I'm gravitating towards in my head.
Oh, look, I still want the intense, if you, and this is coming from me, if they announced Returnal VR, like, I'd be into it.
Vomit.
That would be fucking awesome. Imagine how disgusting that would be. I would love it.
Be disgusting.
I want Gran Turismo 7 in VR. I want, like I said, Returnal. Like, there's
Resident Evil 8's coming in VR.
Great. That sounds really fun.
And 4, apparently. They said they were working on something for that.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I don't know if that'll be the full game, but I also don't know if that game's going to be in first person or not. Give me, there's that rumored fucking Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 remake, new one of that is getting a VR mode.
Right, okay.
Yeah, I don't know if that's happening or not. It was just a rumor that I saw floating around.
But what about that?
I would still be down for those more game experiences, But I think what I want is I want the one that anyone can do while it's still really good and intense. Give me Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart VR. Right? Give me a thing that I can love wholeheartedly and still show people who barely play VR. Right?
Okay, right, I see.
Yeah. It needs to be for like I've done it a few times. Showing my mum VR is so fun every time. And I want more things that I'm able to do that with, and she doesn't immediately freak the fuck out.
Right. Jeremy, it sounds like what you want is a killer app, really, for the platform.
No, that's not what I said. I just want Journey.
I had that thought unironically in my head. I'm like, I've got to say. Yeah, it's interesting. I'm intrigued by this new headset.
Are you going to buy it?
I don't know, Jeremy. I think it's too much money for me to justify just getting it. You know what I mean? But I think I want to go along with the ride with this one. I'm interested in what Sony has to offer us with this headset. You know what I mean? Like I'm interested they want more first-party development for it going forward, right? Not just Horizon Call of the Wild. And that's why they acquired Firesprite, who is making Call of the Wild alongside Guerrilla. And it's why they've got a few more of those studios there to do that.
Give me a Kojima VR thing, mate.
Ooh, not Death Stranding. Too oily. Too many hands. Too creepy.
Yeah.
I don't want head haptics.
He could do something fun in VR.
He could. He'd probably make you stare at a woman's butt, though.
He would.
Like, not that there's necessarily anything wrong with that in the right context, but I don't trust him to ever do that. It's got to be the right context.
I think...
You know I'm right.
I think he... I don't think he wants to make a VR thing.
I agree. It's funny because, like, Kojima's thing is, like, he's so enamored with cinema, right?
Yeah.
But also he's a game developer and he's bringing, like, cinematic stylings and storytelling to gaming and to interactive media. But that almost, because he's been doing that for how long he's been doing it now, 20 or 30 years as this auteur, it's almost like he's old school in that regard. Like, if he's not picking up the new platform that's fascinating to do that, like, he's not excited by the new stuff. He just wants to do his thing.
Yeah, he's found his genre basically, and it's a lot.
Well, he created his genre,
but it's very directed. It's all completely directed, and VR. It is hard to do directed in VR.
Yeah, it's like Half-Life 2 and that, just Half-Life, where there were no cutscenes. It's just people walking around while things are happening.
Yeah.
And, the people in VR try to hold the security guard's hands,
So in an impossible world where this comes out just before Christmas at $750 Australian dollars, real Australian dollars, do you buy it? Do you consider buying it?
I consider it. Strong consideration. I don't think I could justify it. I don't think I could pull the trigger. Especially because I've got a really competent little thing over my shoulder here, this Quest 1, and a library of 5 years worth of games that I haven't touched. How many times have we said Vader Immortal on this show in the last month? Like, I need to play Vader Immortal. I need to play Moss. I need to play... I want to play... what is it? It's Blade and Sorcery, I think. It's like a medieval physics-based combat game that you can mod to hell, but also, like, the original is really cool. Like, there's so many things that I haven't experienced on this platform yet already. It's hard for me to justify spending so much on a platform that I don't know how much I'm going to use. I don't know where I'm going to use it. I don't know how much it's going to be supported, and it's $750.
It's fair enough.
How about you? Like, I know you almost always just want the things, but you've got the VR one, you've got the Quest 2. what do you think?
I think I do want it.
Yeah.
And I think it falls under the same category of why I usually buy tech when it first comes out, is because I don't want to like I'm happy to buy the thing and then wait for it to become worth the money. You know, like when I bought the PSVR 1, I had to wait a while before that was like before I was getting some really good games for it.
Like the Final Fantasy 15 fishing experience.
Yeah, the really good Final Fantasy 15 fishing experience.
And the Spider-Man Homecoming VR experience.
That was so fucking terrible, dude. That was like one of the worst games I've ever fucking played. That was so bad. Yeah, I think I'm happy to wait, and then when the thing comes out, I can just grab the game. I don't have to then
think about maybe then getting the hardware. Is it worth it now?
Yeah. Like when I bought a Quest 1, I don't think I actually owned any VR games at that point on PC. Right. I think I might have had one that was just like the Tomb Raider VR thing that came out. Like I had that sitting in the Steam library. But I didn't actually own any at that point, but I knew that like there was a bunch already out there. Mm-hmm. So I bought the headset, set it up, ticked around with a bunch of demos, put it down, waited for some game sales, picked up a bunch of games, and then started to properly use it. I'm happy to do that with this as well, I think.
Okay.
And, you know,
let me ask you this. Were you disappointed, or looking back, should you have waited on PSVR 1?
I don't know. Because then I don't know if I ever would have bought it.
Right.
And I'm glad that I did buy it, because then I understand, because I enjoy the tech as like as an enthusiast.
And it's part of the hobby.
Yeah, and I enjoy dicking around with something and watching the evolution of that product, so I can have sort of like a better understanding of it as a whole. I think the issue was a lot of those games were quite expensive when they were coming out, and they didn't always feel like they were worth the price. For example, the Space Channel 5 VR game, that was an $85 game that was about an hour and a half.
Fuck.
Yeah. That one stung. That one fucking stung.
$85?
$85.
Holy hell.
That one fucking hurt. That was one of the few times I actually felt like I was ripped off.
Right.
Because that's like a $40 game at most.
Yeah. Yep.
And to do me in with it being Space Channel 5 is what really fucking hurt. There's been a new Space Channel 5 game since the fucking Dreamcast.
It wasn't new, was it? It was more of a port or something, wasn't it?
No, it was new, but it was shorter than the Space Channel 5 games. It wasn't the Dreamcast game. Because it was dancing moves.
Right, okay.
Yeah, it wasn't like tapping the buttons. It was like da 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 da. That one fucking hurt though. Because my housemate and I, like my old housemate rather, like because we had played through Space Channel 5, 1 and 2, and we're like, fuck yeah, there's like a VR game coming. That's dope. That's so dumb. And I remember we looked at the PlayStation Store when it came out, and we were both like, oh my god, that's so much money. And
VR experiences are never that much,
right? And so he got up, and then I just like quietly bought it.
Oh.
And he's like, oh my god. And he felt so bad. He was like, do you want me to pay for half of it? And I'm like, no, it's my sin. It's my penance.
It's my decision.
Yeah.
Oh my god. If you, viewer, want to hear more about the time when that happened, we recorded the podcast around that time.
We
I remember
did.
because I saw the thumbnail.
Yeah.
And I was like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah.
couldn't tell you what it was called though. I think that's when Jeremy started taking liberties with the title name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you search for Space Channel 5, it'll pop up.
Yeah, it'll be around Fortnite Big Chungus.
No, it was well before then.
What?
It was when I moved into that place.
Oh, okay. Pardon me.
Yeah, I will probably get this PSVR 2.
Well, I'm sorry in advance if it doesn't go well.
I don't know what that means.
I don't know. Just kind of like,
I enjoy buying these things. I'm not like I'm not reluctantly doing this.
No, that's true. I guess it just opens you up for disappointment, I guess is what I'm saying.
I suppose.
And that's what I'm trying to avoid, right? Like, I don't just want to throw the money down and then not use it because I'm just going to be looking at it and be like, oh, what the fuck, Kerry? Why'd you do that?
Yeah, I don't do that with many things that I buy. Very rarely have I regretted buying a gaming peripheral.
Interesting.
I think.
What about that Jedi, the Lenovo Jedi Experiences thing that you got secondhand off a friend?
Yeah, I got that for free.
Oh, free.
Yeah.
Okay, I can see why you wouldn't regret buying it.
Yeah, yeah. He didn't want it.
Didn't buy it. MiniMapCast number 32. Cloud is hot. Space Channel 5 is funky. Animal Crossing Pocket Camp is enough.
I think it's a pretty good headline.
In this episode, June, Kerry, and Jeremy debate if Cloud is hot, brackets he is, if Pyramid Head is sexy, brackets June thinks so, and our heated gaming moments, all caps.
I wrote that.
You sure did, buddy. And then there's one comment. It says, "Hi, very nice website. Cheers."
Yeah, so that is a bot comment. That at the end of that comment, it had a hyperlink.
Oh.
So I just deleted the hyperlink and approved the comment.
Yeah. Get that positive engagement, baby. Yep. I hope we find out more, and I'm very interested to hear about impressions of what people think about the headset going forward.
Yeah, me too.
But until then, this is kind of the best we got. That's as far as we're going to go. Both with our, knowledge of what VR is going to be and this episode. We're going to call it.